Now we'd like to request Vijay sir to speak.
Friends, after this whole commotion, it seems as if we have to become more oriented than disoriented. Right? These have been days when the whole spirit of the university as an institution is getting, in some sense, derailed and challenged. But anyway, we are here basically to pay our homage to the martyrs whose sacrifice basically shows us a certain path, a path of being courageous in the face of knowing very well the kind of consequences that entail those that are vulnerable in this country. Because institutions seem to be captured. Institutions themselves are so very prejudiced. Just now I am coming back from the police station after having registered a complaint by the student. And the police man is basically arguing with me that how is it that you're basically, not chanting Bharat Mata Ki Jai, or why is it, that you're trying to support, anti-national elements and so on. Now, I told him that anybody in this country, the implication is because bureaucracy, when it was invented, the idea was that it would stick to the law. The rule of the law is the ultimate sanctity beyond which they are not supposed to go. And I said that somebody can commit murder or any other robbery and just come to you and say that I have done it in national interest, and the fellow who has been robbed is an anti-national. Will you be satisfied with this kind of a story? See, as an officer, you have the onus of going into the merits of the facts. You can't be playing based on sentiments. You can't be taking sides. Now, this is exactly the problem with our institutions, and I think we need to basically understand that the institutions, that the state, the nature of the state, the nature of development that we have is something that does not operate on the basis of some kind of a notion of equality or citizenship. We do not treat all the people in our country as equals, and that has implications also for the fact that we are all part of a certain development process. We are all at some level or the other engaging in the act of production. Large numbers of people who are engaging in production in this country, who are the productive capacity of our country, they are the one who cause the progress. Now the question here is, when the nation dreams of development, when the nation dreams of accumulating and becoming prosperous, how are we really carrying on, or how are we really ensuring that these large sections of the productive classes of our society are participating in this development process as equals, as citizens? And there comes the crucial question of the fact that caste system, or be it several other kinds of, because it basically transgresses into several forms of identities. It could be gender, it could be religion, it could be region, it could be ethnicity. Now there are several such identities wherein you clearly see that there are certain structures where we are not equals. The whole struggle, the Karamchedu struggle, is essentially to basically seek that equality, to seek that dignity. Now why is it that we are unable to achieve that dignity? Why is it that we are failing continuously, time and again, for several centuries? Why is it that this equality is not really given to us, despite the fact that there is a constitution which essentially expects the state to play a certain proactive role in terms of actually causing a certain positive discrimination? Why is it that we are failing time and again for centuries? Now this question needs to be basically interrogated in the background of the fact that the nature of the development itself is such that we can't perhaps be carrying large numbers of people as equal citizens. We can't really be giving dignity to large numbers of our own citizens in the nature that this country is progressing. We have done a survey, for instance, on the bricklane workers. The bricklane workers who come from Odisha, working here in Telangana, large numbers of these people are Dalits. They are SCs and STs who come from the most backward districts of this country, the KBK region. Close to about 4 lakh people migrate from the KBK region and work in different parts of the country in the brick lanes. Now, if you look at the modus operandi of how exactly this productive class of workers are being handled, workers who belong to the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes are being handled, you will be puzzled at the nature of this development itself. The one thing that you should remember is that the bricks that they produce are actually building the glitter of your urbanization on this side. But think about their own lives. You have massive urbanization, you have this massive speculation in the land markets, you have massive quantum of finance that gets circulated. Most of it is Benami money of big time politicians and different kinds of mafia and other kinds of unsocial or antisocial elements, which basically pump in their money into these kinds of businesses. And these businesses are run on the basis of the exploitation of these large numbers of lakhs of Dalits. The question is, how are they really handling these markets? When the Dalits from Orissa come here, they are given a certain quantum of advance payments. Now they take this advance payment, now it becomes in some sense a form of a loan. And as against this loan, their wages get attached. So which means that as you work, you're basically repaying the loan. This actually boils down to some form of a bondage. That because you can't really change your employer until and unless you have repaid the loan. So in that sense, it boils down to some form of bondage. Now because advance amounts are paid to these large number of Dalits, it is also possible that you may not be able to get the worker or you have to ensure somehow that the work is done. That the quantum of bricks that the producers want them to make has to be made, right, in order for them to make the kind of profits that they aim to make. And in course of ensuring this to happen, what is happening in Orissa is that there is a certain agency, there's an institution called the village committee, which basically ensures that nobody who has taken an advance amount can come away from the place of work, even if they are beaten up, even if women face rape, even if there is extreme form of brutality, right, that they experience, even when they are sick, they are expected to work because they have to repay that loan. Now, because these workplaces happen to be so exploitative, people sometimes run away from those places. But when they run away from those places, the way that the upper caste elements, right, of the entire village, the dominant, the money lenders, the landlords, the traders, all of who belong to the upper caste. And there is one more important actor. There is something called as the Jagannath Rath Yatra Committee. Now we know that Orissa has this great respect and reverence for Lord Jagannath. But look at the way that this cultural symbol finds its articulation in terms of holding control over these large sections of Dalits. The Jagannath Rath Yatra Committee priest gets 200 rupees against every worker who is recruited from the village. And the job of this priest, along with the other village committee members, which includes, as I said, the landlords, the traders, the money lenders, as well as, interestingly, the Sarpanch. The Sarpanch is the constitutional authority. But he sits alongside these social hegemons and basically ensures that any worker who has come back from the workplace without having worked for the time period, right, that he has basically promised for, will be sent back. Otherwise, they will be punished in several ways. Money will not be lent to them, input for agriculture will not be provided, groceries will not be given to you. The question here is the kind of controls that exist on these large sections of workers. How do we understand them? Are we operating in an ordinary market? Are we operating like we operate in the so-called wage labor, where the laborer enters a market and bargains as equals? These are the kinds of crucial questions that we need to basically reflect on. The kind of unfreedom, undignity that large sections of people suffer in course of participating in this process of development. We need to also look at the other side of the story, which is extremely important considering the fact that we need to understand the connect that exists today between the nature of the institutions, including our university, right, and the way that development actually creates the kind of conflicts and contradictions that we are facing live today in our institution. I'll narrate the instances of large sections of the Chenchu tribals, or Chenchu Adivasis basically, who are basically given different kinds of government programs. They have been given Indira Awas Yojana houses. And if you go to these houses, we have been to the field, we have been to these Adivasi homes. We were shocked. As soon as you enter the house, you look up and, just like what we have faced now, you become suddenly disoriented. The reason is that there is no roof on the houses. You just have 4 walls, there is no roof. Why did this happen? We were very curious to know, what is it that, happened because of which the Adivasis could not really have a proper house. The houses which were constructed in the, Chenchu Gudems were basically given out to a contractor who was part of this militia called the Cobras. Now we know, what this agency called Cobras is in Andhra Pradesh. Like Salwa Judum, this is, another kind of a vigilante group that was, basically produced in order to kill and intimidate people. Now whenever the Adivasis would question, this is what they would face. They would face, threat to their lives. And because this contractor happened to be one who belonged to this particular, criminal gang, there was nobody to question it. So was the case with several other, programs. Like, there was a program which gave them agricultural land. There was a program which gave them irrigation facilities. The motors were never given to the, Adivasis. You simply dig a, borewell. You come and finish the formality of actually laying a borewell, and then the very next day the contractor would come and pick up this borewell and leave, saying that in any case you don't do agriculture, why do you need this? And there were holes drilled everywhere with no actual irrigation being accessed by large numbers of these Adivasis. Now why I am narrating this is because the ones who are social hegemons, the way that we are conducting the whole development process, right, seems to actually constrain the notion of development, the possibility of development itself. Because if you are a nation that seeks or wants to develop, you should basically tap the competencies, the potential that exists in this entire society. It's not as if you can lay rest with tapping the potential of one small section of the upper layer of these social hegemons, and then imagine that you would somehow carry on with development. That does not happen. Development implies that you're basically enhancing the potential productive capacities of every citizen of your country. Why does that not happen? Well, that does not happen because these hegemons, these social hegemons who actually hold power today, who hold capital today, are not ones who are interested in becoming any productive than what they are. They are basically interested in making huge quantum of money by way of holding the rest of the society to ransom. They want to basically control the society, they want to basically threaten the society, and through modes of coercion, they would like to basically engage in accumulation. This is precisely the reason why we have this kind of an institutional crisis in our country. Because whenever you seek to dominate, whenever you seek to control and coerce the society in course of achieving the objectives that you have set for yourself, then obviously you will not really operate at your best. That's not possible. The whole meritocratic regime, therefore, is one big farce. The whole idea of merit, therefore, is farce. Because the reason is that you can never actually achieve the so-called merit, the so-called potential, right, under the current regime. And this is the reason why. And why does that happen? It happens, as I said, precisely because the existing ruling classes lack the basic competencies, right? And of course, we keep talking about the more immediate context. We talk about plagiarism. How can you really have plagiarism on one hand and simultaneously have a connect with something like, the best possible research, right? The best possible, perhaps merit that's possible, by this institution can be achieved simultaneously. This is a contradiction. Why do you have a person who does not have a merit in the first instance, right, telling us or looking at our own research and then talking about our competencies, passing judgment about whether or not the students are doing research properly, right? How would you really know? This is exactly what the ruling classes themselves are also into. They are into a massive crisis. These are the set of people who basically survive on pilferages. These are the rentier class. This is a class of absolute pests that depend on the productive abilities of others. They survive on the exploitation and suffering of millions of people, and therefore there is no way that we can ever become developed under the current regime, because they themselves will constrain. They themselves will simply eat off the very vitals of what can actually cause progress in this country. They would like to constrain, because and that's the reason why the people of Karamchedu have been massacred. And what does this basically tell us? It basically tells us the transgression between what is called as hegemony and what is called as dominance. Why is it that the security personnel come here? Why is it that they prevent us from holding this debate? Isn't it the very purpose of the university to hold debates and discussions? Isn't it the soul of this very institution? After hundreds and thousands of years of massive struggles, we have been able to achieve this space, this freedom, where people can talk, right? Because the whole idea of deliberation, the dialogue, the idea that you basically reason out, and reason is the weapon, and what we produce is reason. How can you ever work as a university or claim that you are in university? Because the notion of a university is universality of ideas. And you have to basically deliberate on all these ideas in order to sharpen the idea of reason, which is what we believe would do good to humanity. Why are we prevented from advancing this reason? Why were the people of Karamchedu massacred? There is a certain connect. We are being prevented from exercising this reason because the minute we engage in this reason, our ruling classes get exposed. The minute the people of Karamchedu resist, their hegemony gets challenged. And this is where hegemony, which otherwise is seen as manufacturing of a certain cultural social symbolism, a certain cultural social institutional modes, practices, beliefs, which can actually draw up consent for coercion, that I accept it as my karma, as my fate. I accept this as the way of life. Well, this is what the dominant position is, just the way that the policeman was narrating about what he believes is the truth, rather than actually investigating what exactly is the truth. Belief becomes far more, solidified fact. Beliefs become the source upon which you act rather than the material facts, material evidence. And this is the real problem. That those ruling classes that would like us to hold certain sets of beliefs, the false belief that large number of upper castes in this university have merit, which is a dubious, fact. And we need to challenge that. We need to challenge it by saying that we have several alternative ways of doing research. There are alternative questions. There are several questions that this university perhaps has not even probed, to which competencies exist amongst the Dalit students, amongst those that are marginalized. The hegemony that exists of the English language, the hegemony that exists, right, the claim to meritorious institutions that are seen as having very high rank. You don't own those institutions. These own institutions have been brought by struggles of people. Public institutions are a result of massive struggles of large sections of people, of which Dalit community happens to be a major part. So therefore, it is as a consequence to their struggles that you have had the good fortune of becoming a part of this institution. Try and realize this. The dynamic is quite the other way around. We don't want to accept these facts. And once people start challenging, once people start questioning the dominant set of views that are percolated in the name of what is the narrative, right? Then the hegemony gets challenged. The rulers become suddenly very vulnerable, and that is when they start exercising force. And that is when you actually find the security staff coming time and again to us, right? Showing us this notice, and that's when you have, be it Jahanabad, be it Karamchedu, be it several other places. Why is it that today women are facing rapes as a mode of coercion? Because the dominance, because the hegemony has been challenged, well, dominance becomes very apparent, right? violence becomes the source through which they would like to exercise control, and that becomes a very, far more crude form of exhibition of what actually, percolates, or what actually is the essence of the nature of these institutions. And friends, this is precisely why we need to carry on this struggle. The struggle, for justice for Rohith precisely is a struggle that is questioning these institutions. Why is it that his caste certificate has been made controversial? How is it that the institutions operate, in convergence with what the dominant would like, the state to speak? Why is it that today the police are not acting on the cases? Would they have done the same thing had it been some, Dalit who would have been the accused? And these are the kinds of questions that I am asked even in the villages. In the villages, I've been working also in the Medak district, where big industrialists pollute massively farmlands which are actually owned dominantly by Dalits and minorities. And when people question, they are implicated in cases. Whenever the industry registers a case, immediately you have an arrest. When the people register a case against the industry, the institution does not respond. Now this simply implies that under the current regime, there is no way that you have any rational, reasonable mode of conducting the whole process of development. And this discrimination that basically percolates everywhere, in every institution, is what is likely to constrain the very possibility of development. And therefore, if you are fighting against caste, it also means that you are wanting to basically see a very different alternative, kind of development. Not merely in terms of accumulation, but in terms of, institutions, in terms of politics, in terms of ideas, in terms of education, in terms of what is knowledge, knowledge production, and so on. So therefore, this particular struggle is not a struggle which is limited to this university or a particular event. This basically entails the whole future, in some sense, of this nation. And friends, we know the current set of regime, the kind of politics that are being played around. We know the way that constructions are made, right? What is basically what was, and that's also a very important thing, that this struggle basically represents the unity of the Dalits and the OBCs. It represents the unity of the Dalits and the minorities. It represents the unity, Rohith himself represented that kind of a bridging, right, between the Marxist way of understanding and the Ambedkarite way of understanding. It represents therefore a certain unique, kind of a moment in history where new ways of thinking are being articulated, where new possibilities are being probed. And therefore, and this of course is standing up against a certain kind of rhetoric that we have, in the central government. We have seen how the state government has handled our students, right? The kind of violence that has been unleashed on our students, and of course what followed later in terms of when we went to the Home Minister, the kind of narratives that he gave us about our students. We are surprised, but we are not surprised as well, because what else do we expect from these kinds of rulers? But the idea is that somewhere down the line, the struggle that definitely has an impact. It's not as if our struggle has gone, in some sense ignored. We have seen how the HRD minister has been shifted. Why has she been shifted? Isn't it because your UP elections are coming closer? Isn't it because you're afraid somewhere that the Dalits of this country are likely to punish you? Isn't somebody like Amit Shah going and engaging in some kind of punya snan in the Dalit Ghat? What does that basically represent? Why is Amit Shah suddenly interested in having his food along with Dalits? Every day he has his food, but suddenly it circulates in the media that he's wanting to have food with the Dalits. So obviously these are all your achievements. You have compelled your rulers, right, to recognize the dignity and the self-respect of millions of Dalits. They know that there are political consequences. They know that there are costs for it. So therefore, in that sense, your university doesn't stand alone. You are, as Dalits, you do not stand in a very vulnerable position anymore. You are extremely powerful. And therefore, understand that this power that you have, however, needs to be gathered, it needs to be mobilized. We need to therefore keep the struggle on to basically tell the rulers that they cannot be exercising massive coercion, brutality on us and expect us to remain silent. It is not as if they can, basically scuttle our freedoms, our, ability to protect. This is our own institution. We claim this institution, right? What we do not recognize is particular, individuals. That's precisely has been the kind of narrative. That this institution is basically depleted of its values in course of stabilizing certain individuals. That's unacceptable. That is what you're basically trying to do. You're sacrificing the institution to protect the interests of particular political groups, particular persons, but this is unacceptable. This is not the way, that you basically have a future built for this institution. And therefore, we own this institution, we love this institution, we see a great future for this institution, and the struggle, therefore, is meant for the future of this institution. It is the other side which is basically trying to scuttle the future of this institution in terms of exploring the potentialities of this institution. It is the other side which is basically compromising, sacrificing the essential values, the purpose, the object of why we basically exist. How is it that we punish our own students in such brutal manner? Who would ever do that? Because the students are the soul of this university. We are people as teachers who render service, right, to the students, and this is the way that it runs. Therefore, you cannot be treating students as the enemies of this institution and expect this institution to progress. That is not the spirit with which you can run the institution. You cannot have arbitrariness in this institution. You should have certain set of guidelines, certain ways of conducting. If you met out a certain kind of punishment, there should be hard evidence. You can't be going on the basis of your own prejudice. These are things which get connected. And therefore, today, as we commemorate, the Karamchedu thing, we pay our homage to the martyrs. We also realize that this is a struggle. This is an ongoing struggle, right? It's a promise that you need to make to those martyrs, to Rohith, that you would try and protect the dignity of this institution, because this thing called a Velivada is not just an ordinary one place. The whole university, if you realize, has become a Velivada. Right? We today have very peculiar ways of categorizing the outsider and the insider. Right? While we talk about ourselves as university, right, the idea of universe being part of it, but we are a university which is get out today. That we have the outsiders not being permitted inside. Right? That insiders cannot basically interact with the outsiders. Somebody was terming the main gate as the mulaqat point. It has become like a jail, right? So, this is something, therefore, you should understand that, you're trying to protect your own institution, the future of education, the future of knowledge, and of course the dignity of the institution alongside, the dignity, because you cannot have a dignified, a meritorious university where its students, have a very undignified life. That's not possible, right? So therefore, friends, we need to carry forward this struggle, understanding the context. I thank, for your patient hearing. Thank you.